Look at this graph. This line is a war story. It shows the daily calorie intake of a Wehrmacht soldier from 1939 to 1945. This fall alone shows how Germany's fortunes changed over time. Today we'll see which army fed its troops best in World War II, what surprised soldiers about enemy rations, and which foods they refused to eat. We'll look at 5 ration kits: German, Soviet, American, British, and Japanese. And to understand why they look so different, we'll start with the army that turned hunger into a regulation. The Wehrmacht had a simple promise: 2 hot meals and 1 cold meal each day from the field kitchen, if the front allowed it. In practice, units were expected to carry a 3-day reserve, and every man on the line wore his own iron ration. But there was a catch. The iron ration was sealed by doctrine and attitude. You ate it only on a commander's order, when the kitchen couldn't reach you for 24 hours or more, otherwise hands off. So what was inside the box you weren't supposed to open? A typical full iron ration included about 200 grams of canned meat, roughly 250 grams of hard bread or crisp bread, or even canned bread, a vegetable concentrate or canned vegetables, sometimes a 150-gram tin of sausage, small packets of coffee or ersatz coffee, or salt. They drank ersatz coffee since real coffee was scarce and expensive under wartime conditions. Germany had a long tradition of using cheap, domestic substitutes that could be produced at scale. By World War II, factories were already set up to make them. The kit to turn this into meals had its own logic. The oval-shaped mess tin, a design other armies copied, let you cook a stew in the pot and fry in the lid, and the little folding Esbit stove burned a single tablet under that oval like a miniature kitchen. It worked when there was something to heat. It looks very simple and ingenious. Today, Esbit makes a full range of outdoor and camping gear and still produces its folding stoves and solid fuel tablets. To actually eat what was cooked, every German soldier also carried another ingenious device, a fork-spoon combo utensil. This thing went through 2 world wars without any change in design, and Soviet and American soldiers gladly took these utensils as trophies. As the war dragged on, German supply lines thinned. Sugar, chocolate, tea, forget it. Meat tins were swapped for a pea sausage or cheaper canned sausage, and by late 1943, variety gave way to whatever was available. Often German units fed off the land, walking into villages and requisitioning what felt safe and familiar: bread, eggs, milk, butter, cheese, potatoes, sugar. But there were foods that they usually left untouched. Mushrooms of any kind, fresh, salted, or dried, seen as risky because most Germans didn't forage at home, and wild fungi can be deadly if misidentified. On the other side of the line, the Soviets did something radical. They tried to bottle a hot kitchen into a brick and call it a lunch. Before the shooting even started, Soviet planners were experimenting with food that could travel: meat, fish, and vegetable canned goods, tough rusks, and, new for the time, powdered concentrates shaped like tablets and bricks. The idea was to feed whole units fast from kettles and campfires with soup and porridge that boiled up from a block. By 1940, 1 day in 6 was officially designated all-concentrate day, a full breakfast, lunch, and dinner made from those bricks. Then, in June 1941, the Red Army added something new besides the daily mess issue: dry ration, norm number 1, an individual packet handed straight to the soldier. It held 600 grams of rye rusks, counted as bread by weight before drying, 200 grams of millet porridge concentrate, 75 grams of pea soup concentrate, 100 grams of semi-smoked sausage or 113 grams of meat tin, 35 grams of sugar, 2 grams of tea, and 10 grams of salt. It was small, dense, and on a bad day, life-saving. The regular frontline daily ration had range. Rye bread alone could be 800 grams in summer or 900 grams in winter, plus wheat flour, 140 grams of various groats, pasta, 150 grams of meat, 100 grams of fish, animal fat, 30 grams of oil, 500 grams of potatoes, cabbage and other veggies, tomato paste, spices, vinegar, 30 grams of salt, 35 grams of sugar and tea. It looks almost generous on paper because the Red Army printed a lot of paper. Reality could be 2 hot meals a day if the front allowed it, one after dawn, one after dusk. And bread issued in one daily lump you guarded like gear. And the first year was chaos, a country losing fields and depots, long supply chains with too many hands, and kitchens that sometimes had nothing to cook. Soldiers foraged. They bartered dry ration bricks for fish, soup for kisel, bread for sugar. Some units feasted on trophies, others went light for days. Ask any veteran about the rusks and you'll get a face. They were tough by design. Dunked into hot soup, they sang. Eaten straight, they fought back. Someone said, they'll keep you alive, just don't try to chew them with bare teeth. Tea, sugar, rusk, simple and effective. By 1943, supply to the front steadied, rations more often matched the book, and the light shipments added variety. Food remained uneven, but the trend bent toward warm. Meanwhile, across the ocean, another army turned mealtime into an engineering problem and solved it with a 2-pound box and a piece of gum. American planners treated food like a weapons system. They ran climate room experiments to see how bodies handled heat and sweat, built menus centrally with nutritionists, and bought fresh meat like it was ammo, nearly a pound a day per soldier in the States. Then they faced the problem of the century, shipping food to the ends of the world. The fix? Debone meat to save 60% of volume and dehydrate everything sensible, eggs, beets, even entire meals, so one ship could carry the load of 10. When a man had to carry his own kitchen, the lab cooked for him ahead of time. The pre-cooked emergency ration packed a can of meat for each meal, plus a companion unit with soup concentrate, instant coffee, and candy, 3.5 pounds for 3 squares. But mobility demanded smaller. That's how the now famous K-ration was born, originally for paratroops, soon beloved by tankers, commandos, and anyone who moved too fast for a filled kitchen. Each K-ration day's worth weighed about 2 pounds and aimed to be nutritionally balanced under fire. The K-ration came with a distinctly American vibe. Tins of meat or cheese, soy-fortified biscuits, a concentrated chocolate or fruit bar, dextrose candies, coffee or lemon powder that dissolved hot and cold, cigarettes, and the national nerve tonic, chewing gum. The thing had to be airtight, watertight, gas-proof, and seaworthy. A chewing gum company even rigged an assembly line from bicycle chains to pack the stuff. If it sounds industrial, that's because it was. It wasn't perfect. Anyone who lived on K too long missed real kitchens the way you miss home. But as a piece of logistics engineering, fast, portable, it gave a moving army the calories to keep moving. America packed 2 pounds a day into a box, Japan packed hope into a slogan, then ran out of ships. Historians estimate as many as 2/3 of all Japanese military deaths were due to starvation. So rations? What rations? Contrary to popular belief, the Japanese military did not subsist solely on rice, but rice was the staple, often mixed with barley to reduce beriberi. The ration also included meat or fish, vegetables, soy sauce or miso, pickles, tea, sugar, salt. That's broadly in line with European armies. The main difference is what counted as meat and the condiments. Fish and seafood, not just fish, but squid, octopus, shrimp, crab, etc., frequently stood in for meat, and the seasoning profile leaned hard on miso rather than animal fats. 2 very Japanese touches your average Ivan or Tommy wouldn't expect: pickled plums and salted daikon, issued as separate line items. So the reason for high rates of starvation among Japanese soldiers is something else. First, IJA doctrine favored living off the land or procuring food from the local population. Second, planning was often inflexible, and often troops would be issued only enough rations to last them for the planned duration of the operation. Finally, there was the issue of getting the rations to the troops in the first place. Between the vast lengths of the supply lines, the US submarine campaign, Allied air raids, the already weak logistical system, and problems to source food locally, food supplies ran out, and the men starved. British High Command believed something very old-fashioned and very practical: you win wars with boots, rifles, and good food. So the ordinary British soldier's day leaned hard on familiar staples: bacon, corned beef, a quarter loaf of bread, cheese, vegetables, mustard, and, not least, a daily issue of rum measured by just tradition. It was doctrine that fuel and morale move together. The British way wasn't always luxurious, no one's was, but it was intentional. Put something reliable on bread. Put something hot in a mess tin. Put something strong in a mug when the weather turned ugly. That attitude, carried from earlier lessons into a newer war, made rations feel less like a science project and more like a kitchen. It also made jokes about the world's most overcooked tin of corned beef a kind of trench poetry. And for the man who lived by routine, a ritual matters. You shave when you can, you spoon when you must, and you eat what you are given, ideally with a mouthful of something that tastes like home. That steady drum of bread and something kept the day's rhythm, the same way tea breaks kept factories humming. Different battlefield, same idea. Predictability is its own comfort. If you flip through the field manuals, rations look like math. Germany tried to discipline hunger, keep an emergency ration sealed until an officer broke the spell, and keep the mess tin hot with a quarter-sized tablet. The USSR tried to industrialize comfort, bricks of soup, bricks of porridge, a dry packet that stood in for kitchen when the kitchen couldn't stand. It cracked teeth, and it cracked open meals when nothing else would. And by the time food caught up with the front, the habit of turning bricks into warmth was part of the job. America turned food into logistics, egg yolk powder and deboned cargo, menus written by scientists, lunch built on assembly lines. It wasn't a grandmother's kitchen, but it did something only industry can do. Make hot food portable across oceans, at scale and on schedule. Britain held on to ritual. Bread and meat, mugs and spoons, and a measured spoon of something that warmed the chest when the sky went sideways. Of the countries we covered, whose ration would you choose to live on? Drop your answer in the comments. I've got a detailed video with rare photos of what Soviet soldiers found in Hitler's bunker in May 1945. Tap the screen to watch it now. See you there.